Hey guys, so I thought since I'm already doing some chess opening preparation today, that maybe I would share a little something with you guys about a topic which is already very well covered, known as the Blackburne Schilling Trap. But my point isn't to espouse the virtues of uh, this opening trap itself. I want to tell you about how bad it is and why you shouldn't play it. You guys might have seen some videos about this. The way that we usually arrive at the position is we play this normal opening with e4, knight f3, and bishop c4. Very popular among starting chess players for its simplicity. You know, the white player is fighting for the center in various ways, and the black player is doing more or less the same. You know, they want to control the d4 square, the e5 square, all that stuff. But things take a turn for the unusual after this move, knight d4. This is the signature move of the Blackburne Schilling Trap. And it's called a trap because while you are sacrificing a pawn, it's not a gambit, it's just a blunder. However, it is a very tricky move objectively, hence the word trap. So first I'll show you guys why people make this move in the first place, what the idea is with giving up a pawn. Most people would probably give a couple of their less important digits in order to get this attack on f7 with gain of time. However, in this example, it's not really a very good idea for a concrete tactical reason. This is normally the part where I'd say pause the video and look for it, but this is so well covered that I'd be surprised if you and your family who don't even play chess didn't know about it. The move is queen g5, and this move is attacking the knight and the g2 square. And you might think, big deal, so what? I'm going to take two free pawns and a rook, and I'm only losing the g2 pawn. But the most important thing to understand about this is that after a move like knight takes f7, queen takes g2, it's not so much that you're going to miss this g pawn Gary, it's or that they have some kind of way of trapping your knight on h8. What matters is that the queen's position is extremely active, and queen and knight is a very good combo for attacking the king. So first off, if you just take this rook, they'll take your rook, and this is already a disaster unfolding. For example, bishop f1. Well, not for example, it's the only legal move. Then from here, you could play something different like knight f3, but the best move is queen takes e4 check. And now they have a very unpleasant decision to make. They could lose their queen to the knight, or they could move their bishop and suffer some other fate. Now, most people choose bishop because they're hoping, again, that maybe their opponent will not notice what's going on here. But after knight takes c2, they have to give up their queen. And that's pretty sad. Their knight will be entombed on h8. They're going to be down a piece. They'll probably lose one of these pieces trying to save everything. And if the reason that they have to give up their queen is that after king f1, queen h1 is mate. So that's one of the main ideas. But okay, let's pretend that white is a savvy player and they don't take the rook. All right, they save their own rook. They suffer a very similar fate. Queen e4. And here if queen e2, then of course knight takes e2 wins a queen. And if they play bishop e2, then there's a very nice smothered mate, which I'll pause for a second so you guys can look for it because it is really nice. And some videos don't even cover this. The move is knight f3. It's not knight c2 because they could sacrifice their queen. Knight f3 does the job because that's a pin. They can't move the bishop. And that knight never even got to taste the rook on h8, so it's kind of like, why did you even play this way? So that's the idea. They want to checkmate white because they, start hungrily munching with the knight, or maybe even with the bishop. Maybe they could play bishop f7. After queen g5, they could play bishop f7, but it's more of the same. King d8. This is still hanging. The knight's hanging. So if they play a move like castling, we just take the knight. And if they play a move like bishop g8 and queen g2, it's just the same thing. You might check one more time. You might get an extra piece. But it really just looks like you're getting ready to set up the board again because you're getting checkmated here. So that being said, that's what happens if white blunders, if they haven't seen any videos about this, or maybe if there are no videos explaining what to do against it. Or maybe they have a chess coach who hasn't told them, or maybe their coach told them and they haven't learned. The best move here is knight d4. You know, why should we take that pawn and blunder a piece? We should just take the knight. Leaving the knight there is also not terrible, but there's no benefit to it. After pawn takes d4, black has doubled pawns, which is not always terrible. Like maybe they could trade one of them off or something. But usually when one of the doubled pawns is deep in your opponent's territory, it's not really coming back. It ends up just being a liability. Doubled pawns, they're not able to coordinate and attack together because they're not flexible. They're not side by side. Triple pawns are even worse. They just look like they're standing in line for bread. But this pawn on d4, that's going to be the target. But first, castle. If you analyze this position with a computer, it'll show that the position is plus minus, winning for white, massive advantage, like a piece advantage. And the reason is just that black's development and their structure are both extremely poor. Material is not the only thing that matters in a position when you're trying to evaluate it. And here, it's a combination of the fact that white's king is very safe, black is behind in development, they cannot play d5 without it getting captured easily, and the weakness of this pawn on d4. All these factors combined leads to a winning position for white. But you do have to play precisely, which is probably part of the allure for the Blackburne Schilling player as black. Now, there are three moves that I think are critical. c6, preparing d5, knight f6, also preparing d5, and queen h4, going for some kind of caveman attack. So I'll start with queen h4. After queen h4, white has several good moves, but I think the most critical is queen f3, threatening, I guess, checkmate, yeah, because if they don't play something like guards f7, for example, if they play like, well, I guess bishop d6 isn't that terrible, but because you don't immediately get checkmated, but you're definitely not in good shape after a move like g3. And other moves are even worse. Like, for example, if you play maybe d5 because it's at least something you want to do to get your bishop involved, there's just, well, bishop d5, and then there's going to be the same threat on f7. And if you do d6, then this is probably like one of the worst of all, because you lose the bishop and then the game. And then you'll still have to face your family and explain, why did I play this trap, and practically get scholars mated. At any rate, so after queen h4, queen f3, there are two moves that come to mind. One is knight to f6, and one is knight to h6. Knight h6 is more of the newbie move in general. Like, usually beginners want to defend the square directly instead of blocking. But in this case, it's probably the better move, because after knight f6, the move e5 wins a piece. Pretty simple. If they move the knight, then we're going to capture on f7. Like, maybe they could go here. I haven't really analyzed this because it's just garbage, but after queen f7, king d8, I think just h3 should do the trick. The knight has to go somewhere, and their king is running around, they're losing material. No bueno. So probably knight h6. But even knight h6 has a problem. White can just play g3, which looks like it's inviting the knight into g4 for some kind of knight and queen checkmate, like maybe similar to what we saw in the other line. But since the knight can't move without losing f7, it's not really coming together. For example, d3, knight g4, queen f7, king d8, bishop g5, and they're going to have to play knight f6 and lose the house. Chop, chop, chop. And I think this does the trick. So you could also take the rook if you just want to insult their intelligence. So pretty bad, right? So queen h4. Okay, but let's say that you're not a caveman and you play some move like c6. Then white still has good stuff to do. Rook e1. The reason for rook e1 here, which is not even like the only move, even a move like d3 is fine. The reason for rook e1 is so that if they play d5, you take with check, and that ruins their entire kingdom. So they would probably play like d6, and if as black you can't play d5 at any point in your opening, you probably are not going to equalize. And then one method that I like is to play d3, blocking the pawn so they can't ever play d3 to gain a little bit of time. And after knight f6, c3. The idea is that they're going to lose this pawn anyway, right? And if they start wasting time playing moves like c5 to defend it, it's just going to make things better and better for white. And if they try to liquidate it, you get first queen b3, which is sort of a Morphy style development of the queen, which wasn't possible if c3 didn't come with an attack on d4. And after black defends that threat, which is pretty simple, you can just play knight takes c3 or even b takes c3. They're all good with an outstanding position. So that position is plus minus. And if they try knight f6, which is the last common sense move, it pretty much ends up being the same as c6. d3. If they want to play d5, they still can't do it right away. So c6 is the preparatory move. Rook e1 anyway, and we reach the same position. There are other smaller lines in this system that you could try, but it's all pretty much the same. White is just going to be better in every line because of their better development, their better pawn structure, their better king safety. Those are three of the very important things that you have to think about in any position. So this brings me to my next point. Uh, what do you tell your friends and family when they realize that the move that you play almost every time is black, and one of the most common opening positions is not a gambit, it's just a normal blunder where you end up with a lost position by like move 5? Well, there's a bunch of excuses that you could make. You could say, I didn't know it was bad, but if they ask you where you saw it, you'll probably say like a YouTube video, and then they'll look up YouTube videos and they might find this video and they'll say, hey, why didn't you watch that video that explains why it's bad? And then you might have to save face again. Um, you could also say, I enjoy the rush of beating people with bad moves. Like, you like being able to play moves that you know are subpar and still beat people. That doesn't reflect very well on your character, but I guess it would be relatable, maybe. Um, you could say, I think it's worth the risk to play something not so good to maybe win the game quickly. And that's at least respectable from a logical standpoint. But there are many other choices that you could make in the opening with basically the same amount of effort, like maybe just watching a random YouTube video from some Joe Schmo that you don't even know, like me. Um, you could just learn some other opening where the risk margin is much lower. For example, the fried liver attack as white is not universally respected, but objectively it's an equal opening. Like there's still things coming out in Chess and Foreman and the Week in Chess. Not the Week in Chess. I mean New in Chess, where they are still debating whether or not black is okay and whether or not white's okay in that opening. You could checkmate someone in 20 moves, even a master. I've done it. Other people have done it. Um, and it's not even like there's some well-known refutation like for this opening. People have known that this is bad for like at least 100 years, so it's old news. Try something else. At least you'll have better results that way. You could beat even stronger people, um, and maybe even with moves that are sufficiently bad for you to feel good about it. um, you could also explain to your friends and family that you can't beat people without cheap shots that you watched on YouTube. um, that's fair, but like I said, there are other openings which give you a much better chance and require very little effort to learn. So poke around the internet, you'll find them. You found this already, so I'm sure you'll find them. And the last two things you could say are maybe you're lazy and would rather listen to a YouTube video than your chess coach. These YouTube videos are always promising fame and fortune for playing some kind of crazy offbeat opening that no one would expect, even though the video is on YouTube where literally anyone with a computer can see it. Yeah, think about that a little bit. If you found it on the internet, probably your opponent did too, and they know about it. Um, Also, the last thing is probably that real openings are hard to learn, and that's true. Learning a real legitimate chess opening where you get either a better position or an equal position, no matter what your opponent does, is tough. It requires real work. And for that, you might need to get a chess coach or, I don't know, ask everyone that you meet on the street desperately, what opening do I play? What do I do? Anyway, I think those are my main options. So please don't play the Blackburne Schilling Gambit, especially if you're one of my students and you're watching this video. Just don't do it. I mean, maybe for fun and an offhand game because it is kind of fun to checkmate people with some lame opening once in a while, like e4 a6 or something similar. Um, but you'll have to outgrow it at some point if you want to be a good player. Um, anyway, guys, so thanks for watching. And if you like this video, please click the subscribe button and feel free to check out my Twitch channel where I do more entertainment rather than educative stuff. All right, take care.